Quite a few questions about packing this down. You can see on the back row there's a cargo bar, fishing tackle box, toilet seat, expandable sink, air compressor, tire repair kit, Jacker 1500, and my drone are all on that back side, held in by that cargo bar. Then I stack down the side fuel, cooking, water. Then I'll come over to this side and pack it in. We'll talk about that. I've got my recovery boards here, 2 sets. They go right up against that. Okay, opposite side of the truck, you got the 2 camp tables and the 2 solar panels stacked. Cooler slides up in front of that. Other than dropping the tent, grabbing the antenna, we're ready to rock. Okay, the last thing I'm taking down is going to be this MCOM 3. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my coax off of it and get that put away. Then we'll come back and talk about this antenna a little bit. And I want to address the buddy pole antenna that I showed you guys in the first part of the video as well, because it didn't really get a fair shake yesterday. So we'll talk about that here in a minute as well. So all I did on this thing was put a lark's head over the top of it, just dropped it to the ground. Now I can just release this and it will drop that wire back to the ground. And I can retrieve this line as well. And I just use this to throw it up over the tree and then to pull tension on it as well. It works out fine that way. And it's got an insulator ring here made out of dough run on it. I just put a double half hitch in that to hoist it up into the tree. Now this is released and I can wind it back onto the winder. So I'll just lay it right out here. And now I can retrieve this cordage from the tree, wind it back up on the spool, and it's ready to use the next time. Now I'm probably going to get some kind of a line winder for this arbor line. A little hassle putting it back on here and keeping it in one spot. Gets kinked up. Probably easier just to butterfly hank this thing on some kind of a line winder like I do my antenna. I'll show you in just a minute. Okay, so once I unclip this off this post, and again, if this post wouldn't have, if I hadn't brought this with me, I have a pine tree right behind me here. I could have just strung a piece of paracord right there and hung it from that tree just as easily. So you've got 2 lines out here. One of them is a shorter line than the other. So we're going to run that one in first. And basically it's just a counterpoise. So we're going to go in and out, in and out, just like this, as if we were winding up any other piece of cordage in hank fashion. So you're basically going figure eights, just like this. Got a little tension on it. And I'm trying to keep it fairly neatly wound here, not go over the top of the nut and things like that on this matchbox, just to kind of keep everything neat and tidy. And again, this one's pretty short. This one's only about 16 or 18 feet. I think that's the reason it's on the side where this retaining strap is at, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to have to go around that every time. I saw Josh mention that in his video as well from Ham Radio Crash Course, that he was kind of not a fan of that whole thing. And it's not that bad because it is on the short side. And if you're taking your time winding it up, it's no big deal. When you get down to the bottom of that, then you're ready to wind the other side. So you just hold on to that. And this is your long side here. So again, we're just going to do figure eights around this thing. So once you got that wound in, you can see there's two insulators on there, one at the end and one in the middle. And that one in the middle is what kind of allows you to use different configurations with this antenna to enable it to be more than just one style. You can use this as an inverted V. You can use it as a sloper, an inverted L. There's lots of things you can do with this antenna, and it weighs like 1.5 pounds, and it does not take up a lot of room in a pack. So it makes a really good, versatile antenna. Okay, so there she is, all wound up and back on the spool. And again, like I said, 1.5 pounds, doesn't take up a lot of room in your pack. Very, very versatile antenna. I want to talk to you guys about that buddy pole here in a minute. Talk a little about this antenna too. So stay with me. We're going to go sit in the shade. All right, fellas, we got everything packed up. We're ready to leave camp. I wanted to talk to you guys real quick about these two antennas. I set up that buddy pole yesterday for you guys and showed you how that operated and set up. And I didn't really give it a fair shake because as soon as I changed that antenna, I got frustrated. I wasn't getting any propagation. I wasn't talking to anybody. I was hearing a few people, but I couldn't talk to anybody. So I changed the antenna out for that sloper with the MCOM 3. And when I changed it out, about 15, 20 minutes after I changed it out, I started hitting people. But then I found out later on, listening to people talk last night and talking to a few people, that the propagation of signals really sucked yesterday during the day. So it probably wasn't the buddy pole at all. And so by the time I changed it out and set that sloper up, the propagation had gotten better and I started hitting people. So advantages and disadvantages, the advantage of both of them is that they're very small. They pack small. So you could take them on a backpacking trip. And if you had a small radio like an ICOM 705, you could easily backpack that setup as long as you had a battery and a solar panel to recharge it, and you'd be ready to rock and roll. The BioNO makes some nice small batteries that don't weigh a ton that you can use with a solar panel to recharge them. I just use my Jackery to recharge mine. So disadvantages, I think, of these things is that, number one, there's not a whole lot of disadvantages to the MCOM 3, other than the fact that you have to have a high tree to get that thing up into. So if you're in that situation where you don't have a big tree or a big tree close enough to where you're going to camp that you can get the end of that antenna up in or the center of that antenna up in for an inverted V-style antenna, then you're probably not going to get it to work real well for you. However, the buddy pole sets up in a clearing. It's got its own tripod that sets up in a clearing. You're ready to rock and roll in minutes, and you don't need anything around you on the landscape to support that antenna in any way, shape, or form. The only disadvantage is, because it's a coil type antenna, you have to tap the coil for the bands that you want to be on. You can tap multiple coils at the same time, but where you plug that plug in from the base unit matchbox is what cuts off the amount of coils you need to be on certain different frequencies. So if you're going to change frequencies, you've got to at least walk to the antenna, unplug the plug, and plug it into another cutoff nut. That's one disadvantage, I guess, of it. But really, if it's only 20 feet from your rig, it really doesn't make that much difference. I think the big advantage of both of these antennas is the pack size of these antennas. And I think both of these antennas will definitely be in my stable. And they'll probably be the only two antennas in my stable for the time being, once I get my 705, until I get a lot of practice on HF. And again, I haven't had my ticket, but for about 4 days now, 4 days now. And I've only been on the air a couple times. And last night was really a concentrated effort when I camped out here. You know, I was on it most of the day, having some issues, and then it started getting better and better and better. And I was talking into 10, 11 o'clock last night until I went to bed, and I got up this morning and hit it again on 20 meters. And I was talking to a guy this morning on 20 meters, one guy in Florida and another guy in Panama through a remote from Florida. Yesterday, I talked to guys in Texas, Colorado, California, a guy in Northern California doing a Parks on the Air activation. So I talked long distances yesterday afternoon and evening, and I don't think that was the fault of the buddy pole antenna. I think it was just a propagation issue, and the timing worked out. When I swapped the antennas out, propagation got better. The other advantage, I guess, of something like the end-fed antenna or something like the MCOM 3 is that you can use an antenna tuner with that to tune the antenna up, but most people would tell you if your antenna is set up right, you don't need a tuner. That's what I've always heard people say. However, with an antenna like that, that is, you know, a long wire length, and you're only going to use a certain amount of that length for propagation on a certain band, you're probably going to want an antenna tuner for that. So that is an extra piece of equipment you have to pack, although mine's very, very small. It's like a little bit larger than it's probably a 6x8, something like that. However, when I get my 705, I believe it has a built-in tuner, so I won't have to worry about that either. So those will be the two in my staple. I appreciate you guys joining me for this video. Pretty lengthy video today. Probably going to be 30 or 40 minutes time I get it edited out. Hopefully I'll have it up by tomorrow sometime. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.